Good evening, everybody. Have to remember to turn my mic on. This is the second class in articles in our course. And we are going to look at a principle, a law, called equivalence of form. Last week, we spoke a little bit about how to approach an article, how we should be thinking, how we should be relating to, how to actually approach the article so that something, that the connection will produce what it's supposed to produce. The only reason that we study an article is in order to attract the light, to attract the surrounding light. This, as we keep emphasizing, it's not an intellectual process. It requires a connection, an interconnection in us in the form of a demand. And this demand, a correct demand, actually opens us to an influence that will allow us to connect with the actual meaning of the article, not, what it means to our reason, but what it means to the demand that we brought to the article. All of these articles that we study, these in the first part of the course, they all come from a book called Shamati, meaning I heard, I have heard. This book was originally a notebook that was kept by Rabash, by Rav Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag, of the things that his father taught. He was actually his father's principal student. It doesn't often happen that way, that you have a master Kabbalist who has a son who also, is that kind of a level. But in this case, that happened, and at a pretty young age, when he was a man, Rabash started studying with his father, and he wrote all of the lessons down in a little notebook, so that he could return to the ideas and he could work with them. And this was just like a loose leaf type of notebook, and he carried it with him. And aside from the text, the source text that he studied and that he taught from, he would occasionally, when Rav was studying with him, he would show him this book, and he would share with him these things, these articles. And it was his constant companion. Aside from Psalms, which he always carried with him, he always had this book with him. And when, in his last days, on his deathbed actually, he gave this book to Rav Lightman. He said, take it and learn from it. And after a few years gap, Rav took this book and he arranged to have it published, and it first appeared in Hebrew. The book now is available for the first time in English. We have a fly attending the lesson. Yeah, you sit there. When we started studying with Rav here from North America, we begged to have this book in English. There was only a few articles that were translated, even though we did use them and we could hear them in live translation, and we did have some written translations, some good, some quite rough. Now this book is available. I think you may have seen it. It's on KabbalahBooks.info, and it's on a beautiful white cover, Shamati. And this is what we study from, and it contains really principal articles that connect a person to spirituality, that allow a person to get that first feeling, that first foothold. So on the calendar page that's got the names of the lessons and has the extra material that we're studying, you'll find a link to this article. So please open it up, have it in front of you. Right? It's on the schedule page. Now, there's another thing about these articles. These are thoughts, and the Shammati articles were spoken thoughts. This is as though you're sitting in the room with the greatest Kabbalist of the 20th century, Bala Salam. There may be things in the way that it appears to you in the English language that seem wrong. You're going to find typos, you're going to find strange construction and syntax, but those aren't mistakes. They're there for a reason. They actually, those things that seem the most confusing and the strangest kind of construction, that's where the most is hidden in the article. That's where we have to look, and where we have to stretch ourselves in our demand and in our desire for connection to become as much like that as we possibly can, because that's where the mother lode is. It's true of the whole article. The fact that it's constructed in such a way, it really is a help for us to stop using our previous knowledge and our intellect, because there's nothing to be gained in the intellect. Even though the study of Kabbalah is very deep and it's very profound and it has great insight into the laws not only of spirituality but also the laws that we find here in this world, because really it's the same law but it's clothed differently. So, when a person studies this, they can appear to become smarter. But that's not the point. The point is to become changed, to become like the material. So, there is a law called equivalence of form, and it exists everywhere. It exists in spirituality. It exists also here to our five senses and in the physical universe as well. And it's an important thing, and often we see things, we may even have heard about these sorts of things in one form or another, but we're not giving them their correct importance and weight. Because if we did, we would understand what it is that they're actually there for, what they're doing with us. And this is what we need to discover. This law of equivalence of form is actually it's a force in nature that is a guarantee that we actually can reach spirituality, that we can pass through this barrier. There is a way, and it's built into nature. Even though the Kabbalists tell us about this law, this is not some kind of a novelty. It's not something that somebody made up and said, if you practice doing this, I've got a new technique. No, this is something embedded in nature itself. And because this principle exists, it's possible, let me put it this way, if it didn't exist, giving people a desire to reach something beyond this world would be a cruel hoax. If there wasn't a way to actually do it, and on the forum I see people are asking, well, how can I do this if I don't know what spirituality is? And how can I ever know what it is to bestow? And if I don't know, then how can I even take a step towards it? And all of these questions about, is this really even possible? Where do I even start with all of this? The point is that this law exists as a means of waking us and also bringing us into a place where we can begin to understand how to utilize the law. We know that the Kabbalists tell us that there is the thought of creation, that the very force of development itself is intended to fulfill a particular law. And we studied this before, but you'll see as we go through this that we will return time and time and time again to exactly the same things, because when you first hear something or you first read it or you first consider it from one particular point of view, you don't really see enough of it for it to be really alive in you. It takes a constant exposure to these things. So we know that the whole purpose of our life here is according to the thought of creation, which is to create a creature and to bring that creature to complete fulfillment. Okay, but how and on what can we begin moving? So let's look at the beginning of this article and see if we can't open that up a bit. The acting intelligence. What the Kabbalists said, that every person is obligated to comprehend the root of his soul, means that the creature's purpose, most desired and full of hope, is bonding with the Creator, as in the verse, and to bond with Him. And the sages interpret this as bonding with His attributes, just as He is compassionate, so you. He says here, the Kabbalists said that every person is obligated to comprehend the root of his soul. Does that mean that you're going to have to go to school, you're going to have to learn about this, you're going to have to sit there and go, root of my soul, root of my soul, root of my soul, I'm thinking about it. So what? The obligation that he's speaking about is the system itself that is designed to move us through this. That is, we exist within a system. We exist within laws. We exist within an environment and an entire world and system of forces that we feel on various levels. And these forces are leading us and guiding us so that we will, in fact, comprehend the root of our soul. That everything that exists before us will stop being opaque to us, something that we can't understand. It will become transparent, so that we will be able to, rather than dealing with the objects of this world, with the things that only work within our limited system of egoism, we will be able to see the mechanism, feel the mechanism within us that actually operates behind this, that it is our very nature to be able to do this. And he continues that the creature's purpose, most desired and full of hope, is bonding with the Creator. That's what's going to be revealed. Right now, the desires that we have, why we think we're motivated to do certain things, is based on an inner system that's opposite to this. But that, in fact, the actual identity of the things that we really want will become revealed to us for what they actually are. And that the creature itself will not just be pushed, but come to recognize that the most desired and the filling of hope is actually a conscious bonding with the Creator. To not only to be drawn to it, but to have the desire to come to it. So that what draws us will be met by a quality within us that is precisely the same as that quality that draws us. Because in nature, there is a constant jockeying between what exists within something and what exists without it. It's called homeostasis. There are forces that we are born with. Programming that we have, genetic programming, things that we've gotten from our ancestors, things that we have through the will to receive that sort of determine everything that we're going to do and how we're going to feel everything that we feel. And then outside of us also, there is a system that is affecting us, gives us desires, and puts pressure on us from the outside as well. And this exists not just in the spiritual realm. I mean, right now we really don't have much of a grasp of this at all. But it is possible, by understanding how this works on other levels, to see how this helps us. You know, it's said that the Zohar, we'll call it the wisdom, is hidden behind 1,000 locked gates. But actually, there are no locks on the gates at all. The principle of movement in spirituality really has to do with becoming like the space that we wish to enter. That is the only way to get beyond the locked gate, is to be what is on the other side of the gate. the only thing that keeps us out of any of these so-called secrets, keeps the light hidden from us, is whether or not we can become like that quality that's hidden to us. We have a question from Ashley from Albuquerque. Is equivalence of form similar to the doctrine of signature? I don't know that doctrine. How a similar form links to cure that form. I don't understand that, I don't know that doctrine, so I can't really comment on it. Sorry. Let's take a look at how this functions in nature. In every environment that exists, we see this force also at work. And it happens on different levels of life as well. Let's go to the overhead camera. Life as we perceive it here in the physical world is divided into the inanimate, the vegetative, the animate, and we'll call it human. Each one of these represents an environment, and each one of these levels is subject to this law of equivalence of form. And in fact, every one of these levels keeps this law of nature called equivalence of form absolutely. The way that we see it functioning, let's take a look first at the inanimate level. Inanimate is, is the hard stuff, the hard matter in the universe, the preponderance of what exists. Rocks, planets, gases, all of these things that are, why do we call them inanimate? They're inanimate because they have very, very little desire for any kind of development or change. Their greatest desire is only to maintain their form. Right? They don't propel themselves. They have to be moved by enormous external forces because of the lack of desire for change. And they undergo exactly this same law, and you can see it pretty clearly on them. If you think about the Big Bang, the physicists tell us that one of the theories of the creation of the physical universe is that at some point there was an extremely dense point that contained all matter. Maybe it wasn't even perceptible, this matter. But something happened. They don't know what happened. But as a result of what happened, there was an explosion, an emanation of tremendous force that allowed this, that spread this matter all the way through the universe. Guys in the control room, Mark in the control room. Please keep motion to a minimum. It's distracting. There was a tremendous burst at which the force impelled everything at tremendous speeds as far as could go. And what happens, what they tell us, is that eventually everything will come into a balance where the force moving against it will stop it, and it will come into a complete rest against this impelling force. There are other theories, but that's the basic theory. Also, on the level of the Earth, you see that there's a force inside of the Earth that moves plates, that causes earthquakes, and so on, so that the pressure inside becomes equalized with the pressure outside, and it comes into some kind of a state of balance. Now, these inanimate objects, regardless of their amount or lack of desire, they keep this law perfectly. They conform to it. They don't actually resist it. They exemplify it. The vegetative level, this is hard matter. Very small desire for change. Oops. The vegetative, though, does have, it has desire, and as a matter of fact, one plant on the vegetative level, a single plant, a single flower, has more desire for change than all of the inanimate material in the entire universe. And still, this desire is limited to one thing only. We say that it has a spirit of growth. And it also shows that its growth happens as a result of this equivalence of form, of this desire to reach a homeostasis with pressures in it and around it. Through its roots, it pulls in something, it's empty of something, and it pulls in minerals, using water to dissolve the soil and so on. So what it lacks on the inside, it creates a pressure, a hydraulic pressure that draws these minerals into it. It has what it lacks outside of it in terms of the photic nourishment that it gets from the sun in order to produce the system that will animate it and move it towards its fulfillment. All of this happens by taking a lack on the inside and pulling from the outside into it and aiming itself in its limited singular desire for growth at its goal. It completely keeps the law of advancing through desire by finding an equivalence or a balance with the forces inside of it against the forces outside of it. Here, the animate level has an even greater amount of desire for change, and a single fly, that fly right there who's on the very edge of the desk and has been sitting very attentively but hasn't asked any questions, has more desire than the two layers below it combined. The animate level, as you can see, is free to choose environments to move around, and it does so according also to a homeostasis. It will, if it lacks food, it will travel to the place where it is. It will seek its benefit through its higher degree of movement, which happens because it equalizes itself against many, many more factors that give it transportation. And it keeps this law of reproduction and of feeding and of migration and all of these things from an inner need, a pressure, an inner need against qualities and things that exist for it outside of itself, and it moves to where those things actually are. That it finds equivalence in its place. We're talking time and space here. It finds equivalence of place with that thing that will sustain and advance it. Now, when it comes to humans, we have a really big problem and a really big misunderstanding, and I'll get to it in a second. Let's see what we've got here. George from New Jersey, is the creature my egoless consciousness or my soul that needs correction? The creature is the will to receive. That's the only thing that the Creator made, was this opposite desire called the will to receive. The creature is not just you. The creature is everything that has that description. And what has that description? We just spoke about some of these other things that we consider to be outside of us. We consider the inanimate, vegetative, and animate to be things that exist outside of us, but they actually are parts of us. And every one of these is all part of that singular creature called the will to receive. The soul is something else. The soul is when we take this point in the heart that appears before Marsan, that brings us to a place where we can learn about these laws of nature and begin to use them to sort of lever us towards our goal. When that point in the heart starts to awaken into a similarity of form with its opposite quality, when it reaches that first level of inner similarity with the quality of bestowal, that's called soul. We don't have a soul until that really occurs in us. We have potential for the soul, or you could say well, it's not even really an embryo yet. It's the possibility of an embryo, that point in the heart. Murray from California, is it similar to Plato's theory of forms? No, it's not similar. Plato did take this from Kabbalah, but he materialized it. So forget everything that you've learned from Plato. This is speaking about equivalence of form really on the spiritual level, and we're only now speaking about it in terms of natural science so that we can begin to see the difference between where we should be putting our attention and where we mistakenly put it. And we'll get to that. Mickey and Keith. That might be two guys, it might be two parakeets. We have a fly, I don't know what we've got. Could be a husband and wife. If we are the opposite of the Creator, being the will to receive, how can we ever become bestowers? And even should we? If the will to receive is what God intended us to be. No, that's not what the Creator intended us to be. We have the assumption that the creation is a once and for all thing. You know, whoop, there it is. It's really, what we have here is the halfway point in creation. We were given a will to receive, and we were given this hiddenness so that we would have free will. That the real forces that work on us would be hidden from us so that the choices that we made would not be compelled. Because the Creator wants to raise us to the level at which we have what the Creator has, which is that it is unconditional. There's nothing and nobody making the Creator bestow. Anything that the Creator is, anything that the Creator gives, is not done because it has to be that way. It's completely unconditional. It is the possession, in the sense, of the Creator, to be whatever. And the Creator wants us to be able to be that rather than a giver. So the goal is that we should take what it is that we were created as and not change that because it's perfect. You can't change that, and we're not learning to change that desire to receive. What we're here to learn is how has the Creator arranged it so that we can actually change not the object, but the quality of the object. That is something we can do. But it's not something we do on our own. We do it with the help from above, with the environment that's created for us. We have to understand how these forces work, what they're really for. This world that we're in is not intended for us to, our inner life is not for us to obsess about what we do and we don't have, what we can and we can't do, what we think and, how we propose that reality should be. Our inner life is not about any of these lower conditions. These lower conditions, the animate, vegetative, animate, whether we have our daily bread, so to speak, whether we have money, a roof over our head, all that stuff, actually, it's completely already taken care of. We don't notice this. We're under the mistaken idea that we're supposed to be keeping these physical laws of nature. We've got a big problem with this because that is not at all our environment, and those things are already done. It may not be clear to us now, but nature provides absolutely everything that we need at every given moment and requires from us absolutely everything that we have to support the system as a whole. But we're not in touch with this. We don't feel it. We don't see it. We don't really understand our role in all this. We think we are like animals or like vegetables or like rocks. We think that we're supposed to live our life out on that level, and that our corrections are on that level, and that we should be preoccupied with these things. But that's not our environment at all. You know, you can only eat one meal at a time. You can only live in one house at a time, wear one pairs of shoes at a time. I mean, if you're intending to wear shoes on your feet. Of course, you could wear shoes all over your body, but that's silly. You have everything that is required at any given moment. We function as a complete organism, actually as one person. That singular will to receive is a singular creature that experiences itself only by its opposition, its difference in quality to the Creator. And every one of us functions as a cell within that body. I mean, actually does. This is not a philosophy. It's like we wouldn't have any ability to communicate with each other if we weren't really completely interconnected with each other. None of us can sustain ourselves on our own. You know, try it. Go off someplace where there are no resources and no people and no way to communicate with them, and you won't last very long. We are embedded in our environment, and especially in the social environment. We already exist as part of this complete body. What the Creator wants to have happen to us is that we awaken to the way that He sees us. And I say He because it's a giving force, and a giving force is called He, not that it's a man. And the environment, the process, and even the hiddenness that is given to us is all part of a system. But how we do that has to do with understanding the laws that we're functioning under. Stru, from Ohio, will we ever really be able to bestow? Yes, we will, if we learn the method and if we approach the study in order to transform our inner qualities so that we reach equivalence of form. Greg from Fort Lauderdale, is it not true that the intent in our heart to be altruistic, to be for the purpose of sending pleasure back to the Creator? That's correct, but we have to learn how that's done. Yvonne from Australia, so this study expands the point in the heart depending on the intention behind the study. Everything is dependent on our intention. Nothing's going to happen you can't just go, oh yeah, spirituality, give it to me. That's reception. That's the halfway point in creation. That complete, utter reception. Now we have to become aware of our own qualities, and we have to open that point in the heart. What's in the heart? I'm taking a few side trips here because I think we need to clarify a few things. The human heart in Kabbalah is the sum total of all of the desires that we have. Now, all of these desires, except for one, they're all egoistic desires. Except this desire that gets placed in us from above. This is the point in the heart. This is an altruistic desire. This is a desire actually to connect each one of these desires to a form of bestowal. Now, this desire is called Israel. These desires that we experience within us, that's called nations. The nations of the world. This process that we undergo is an inner process. And the language that describes this kind of thing, you have to understand, is talking about qualities within us. I'm pointing this out again because there's a lot of, it's very, very difficult to get past that sensation that we're talking about physical things, that we're talking about religion, that when the Kabbalistic texts talk about use the word Jew or use the word Israel, that it's speaking about the religious level and something genetic and physiological. No. It's speaking about a process inside of us. The word Israel is a desire for direct connection, straight to the Creator. Yasher Kel, it means, it's Yasher El. These two roots make this word is Israel, and it exists, that point in the heart can exist in any person, regardless of their religion, their nationality, or any of those things. This is meant for all of humanity. And these nations of the world are not people who don't believe the same thing, who don't read the Torah, who are, considered goyim. It simply means those qualities within us that must undergo change. That's the heart, that's the point in the heart, and these are the desires that exist in the heart. Let's see. I'll take a look at a few more questions and then we'll go on. Madian, so we are at the midpoint in creation, so is it like we are part of a slow motion play of something that happened instantly already? A house has been built, a table has been set. We haven't entered the house and we haven't sat down at the table. Of course, it's all there and it was all created, but we haven't received it. We haven't yet realized it and we aren't partaking of it. Yes, that is the level that we exist on, but now we have to be able to sense it within us. So how do we sense it within us? The human level. This is not at all, we tend to think that humans are just complex animals. That and we think that we're supposed to be satisfying ourselves or trying to solve our problems on the animate level. We don't understand our environment. We have an environmental crisis, but it's not the environmental crisis that Al Gore is speaking about. The crisis we have is that we don't know what our environment is. We think it's this physical one where the polar ice caps are melting and the poor polar bears have got no place to stand and they're on tippy-toe, they're up there. We can't solve any of these problems there because that's not where the problem is. Yes, we are causing all the problems in the world. We are causing the climate change and all of that, but not by our actions. We're causing it because we are not involved in the environment in the way in which we are responsible to it on the inner level. The environment of the human is really an environment of thoughts, of feelings, of desires. It is an environment of intention. And the laws that we function under are not these laws of the physicists. They're not the laws of the natural scientists. Yes, our bodies do. These levels that exist below us that are determined by us. A single human, without a clue as to what the environment is actually about, contains more desire than all of these levels below it, even in his unconscious state. And through his unconscious state, functions like the pivotal point in the system, the transformer, the thing that determines the quality of life on all of these levels below it, because all these levels are determined by the desire within the human level. But they're not desires for, having big industry and polluting things in order to produce raw materials. That's not our problem. We can never stop doing that by legislation, by turning off your lights, by recycling your garbage. The only recycling of garbage that's going to do us any good is the garbage intentions that we have. The environment that we live in, that the human lives in, no, I can draw a better circle than that. All right, I can't. The environment that the human lives in is called the Creator. This environment also functions by the law of equivalence of form, but based on the components of that environment. So here we have the creature inside, right? This creature contains all of those four levels. The human level. Well, the Kabbalists call it the speaking level. Not the human level. The human level is just like a complex animal who can sort of think about time and space, can see its fulfillment in the future. No, the Kabbalists call it speaking, because it means that the utterance, the intention of the human is meant to interact with this system. So, and also the levels below it. The speaking, the animate, the vegetative, and the inanimate. That's the creature, okay? But they're all controlled by this part of the system here and its response to the environment. Now, in the environment, the beginning of this article says that the creature is the creature is obligated to contemplate the root of its soul. How does that happen? The obligation works like this. From the side of the Creator, there are laws. There are forces, pressure, an outside pressure. All of these different laws are all thoughts. They are pressure of light, of bestowal, intentions towards the creature. They're laws because they are above the creature, and so everything that is above the creature, you can say, obligates it. It controls it. It creates it. It sustains it. It guides it. There is nothing that can happen that doesn't follow the intention of a higher level. We can see that on everything, even in the physical world. That level that has the greater power, so to speak, the greater influence, and by the way, bestowal in Hebrew also means influence. Ashva'ah means to influence. So it's incumbent that this force of love and bestowal is aimed at the creature. There's a system of these intentions, all aimed at the creature. There are, in fact, 613 such intentions within the environment, the human environment. These are the real laws. These are the real ones, not the ones we make up, not our systems of government, not the agreements that we make, about who goes to jail based on what type of theft, and if theft is hidden, then you don't go to jail, and etc. It's none of these concoctions and social engineering that we make that are driving us down to the worst possible state because we are so completely detached from nature. We don't understand anything about how people function. We don't know anything about human nature, and we don't know anything about our environment. All of these theories are leading us to an extreme crisis. But fortunately, the crisis is a very good thing because it's making us want to know how the system actually works. And we won't be able to go on doing what we've been doing. So this is how the system works. Now, opposite this, inside of the creature, there is a like pressure from the inside. There are 613 pressures, forces, that move outward against the pressure of this system. They're unlike it. These are called desire. These are all our desires. So there are 613 acts, let's call it, actions of love coming from the Creator. There's also an additional 7, which brings it to 620. There are the 7 laws of the Rabbanim, of the sages, actually, which are additional. So you will see alternately in the literature the reference either to 613 or 620 laws. What happens here is that a pressure is put on a particular desire. And the goal is that the creature has to come into a homeostasis, an equivalence with this pressure. Otherwise, it's felt. If the creature does not attempt to discover the quality of the love behind what it first senses as pressure against it, it feels it not as love, but as its opposite, because it has a desire that wants something very different. Even though it may be some sort of pleasure, doesn't want to receive that pleasure unless it is at the expense of others and only for itself. So each one of these desires that exist within us, they're actually one desire, but with many layers, like layers of an onion. They're all our egoism. And each one of these interactions is meant to correct and eradicate one layer after another of our egoism. So what must happen, not to feel pain here, is that the force, the inward pressure, must discover the quality of love behind this action that was sent to it as an obligation, as a law, and come into perfect equivalence with it. If it does, then the pressure between the force of the outside and the force of the inside comes into equivalence, comes into a kind of a stasis which you can call peace. And the inner quality of the creature becomes like the inner quality of that particular law working on it, until each one of these goes through a same kind of process in which it reaches a perfect equivalence with each one of these, and it goes on and on and on. Now, to the degree that this equivalence of form is not reached, that this stasis is not reached between the inward and the outward, the quality of life for the speaking level, for the human, and all of the levels of life below it become worse and worse and worse. And likewise, every one of these that's corrected raises the entire level of the creation to what it's supposed to be, which is to be in a proper stasis. But it will never be unless that key level, that desire called Israel, that exists in every person once it's awakened, that this Israel becomes like it's like a tap that gets turned on, that allows this quality of light to flow not to the ones who are doing it, but for the benefit of all life below it. Remember this, when this point in the heart actually can function and fill the entire heart, despite the fact that they were originally egoistic, then this work is for the nations of the world. The intention is to change the entire system, and all it takes is the turning of a particular tap, that functional part of the environment that interacts with the upper force and determines the quality of everything within the creature. It doesn't take the conscious agreement of everybody saying, yeah, we should all become Kabbalists. It doesn't depend on that at all. There's almost nothing standing against it, because in the structure of things, that human level is the smallest part of it. There's 7 billion pieces of conscious egoism in the universe, and there is trillions upon quintillions upon immeasurable amounts of inanimate matter. But all of it, the direction of all of it, the quality of all of it is determined by the level of it that has the greatest amount of desire for change and the greatest capacity to undergo that change and reach equivalence of form. Now, the motion that happens in spirituality is not like the motion that happens here. In the physical world, we call things close and far, and it is a far and opposite echo from the true nature of those states. Here, we can take things that have completely different purposes and qualities in every sense, and stick them within the physical environment, which is not the one that we need to work in. We can, a writing instrument and a cup can be drawn close together and even touch, and we say this is proximity, this is closeness, and it moves through time and place away. But in the spiritual, the only thing that exists there are not objects but qualities. They're like things that you would consider about your friend. He's a nice, friendly person. He enjoys comedy. He is a good singer. He likes children. He hates licorice. You know, they are attitudes, feelings, qualities within a person. Now, when these things are unified, they happen by a completely different means. And the changes in quality between two things are actually what we perceive as time. But all that's happening is that the inner quality of something undergoes a transformation and becomes like something else. And that's what accounts for movement and for time. If the inner desire and intention of two things are opposite, that's called hatred. That is as far opposite as possible. They are as distant as can possibly be. But if they share some aspect of a quality, then, and there's some sort of an overlap in them, that's what's called, let's draw it. In spirituality, that's distance. These things oppose each other, they're opposite. If they have some similarity of quality, then that's called close. And these things that seem to be separate objects, well, here there is a quality of separation, but here there is a quality of union. It's not just union in terms of, oh, I agree and I'm going to stick around and hang with you. This is the miraculous and beautiful door that allows us to be able to enter spirituality. This is the thing that if it did not exist would make our lives pointless, purposeless, that any development would be going nowhere. Because what happens in spirituality is that when these two things acquire exactly the same quality, they are no longer two separate objects. When in spirituality, when a quality and another quality is the same quality, they are the same thing. They're the same thing. They're the same entity. There is no difference. There is no separation. There is no object. There is complete and total bonding. That happens only on the spiritual and intentional level. And that actually happens all the time. We really have this in relation to things in this world. We pay no attention to it. Now, we'll go to some questions, but this article is explaining to us how that happens, even in the world that we see. And we can take that and we can begin to understand that door is open to us, that the system is created for us in order only for us to attain this thing. There's no door. We're not locked out. The barrier is in our heart. And it is achievable because the system is built to break that barrier. From our Spanish-speaking friends, there's no name with this one. Are desires so opposed or fight against our intentions? Is it our nature? Our desires are placed in us. We don't have any responsibility for it, and we shouldn't pay much attention to it. What we pay attention to is for whom do I accept this desire? Who feels this pleasure? We can't escape the fact that we receive pleasure. It's our intention that's opposite, and that's the thing that undergoes change. Marisol, desire must wake up in all human beings. The correct intention must wake up. The desire to reach the correct intention, yes. Yaraska from Mexico, to recognize that I am God's creation, would that mean that be the root? That's the beginning, to realize that the Creator does everything, but the root would mean, to actually reach it means to see that God is the Creator, and I am bonded to that Creator, and I feel exactly the same intention towards everything, and am not disconnected from the Creator. The person reaches an equivalence of form with the Creator. Another question. I have heard that Israel is also a conscious statement. Is that so? Reaching that level of direct connection with the Creator, which is called Israel, must be a decision. That's why people ask, how will I know that I'm not under some kind of an illusion? We know because it becomes a conscious act on our part once we attract the light in the correct way by developing the correct desire to do that. It comes down to our reaching an unconditional state, meaning nothing is compelling us to reach this equivalence of form with the Creator. Creator's not bending our arm. The system is moving it forward, us forward, and is making everything possible for us, but it's not forcing us to do it. We have to come to a place where we reach this kind of thing where actually achieving spirituality seems equally bad as not, and it becomes a free will choice. So yes, it's a conscious decision. Question, how can we change the environment? Who's responsible for changing the environment? We change the environment by changing our intention behind everything that we deal with in the environment. And you are responsible. A question from Marisol Valentina in Chile. Israel, the desire, should awaken in all alive humans, in all? First, it awakens in a small group of people. But just like all of nature is designed so that the part with the greatest desire, that part called speaking, is the smallest number. If it awakens there, it enables the rest of the creature, the rest of the body, to also reach it. It lifts the burden from them, it raises their level, and some never come into this conscious thing. Not everybody needs to study Kabbalah, but the people with the greatest desire, with the greatest egoism, which is the greatest potential for change, they do. And the work that's done in that desire, Israel, is done on behalf of the nations, so that they will eventually receive all of the light. It's for them, it's not for us. It's like if you're the oldest child in a family of 12. You become responsible. You're like the mother or the father for the rest of the family. That's the job of this desire within us. Okay. From Thunder Bay Rada, is there a description of the 613 intentions that make up our environment? No, there is not. These things are given to us as a chain of remembrances according to our preparation for them and according to our desire. And these are our inner responses to the things that occur in our life. There are such books that talk about the externality of these things. It's called the Table of the Law. Shulchan Aruch, and you can look for people's interpretations of what you can find in the Bible in terms of these 613. But those aren't the laws. Those are the laws that pertain to the animal level, to the vegetative and the inanimate level. The laws of the human are hidden there. They are only discovered within us in our reaction to how the Creator treats us. So it does you no good to have a list of them. You only know them when you're in it. Resonance, vibration, quality. Somebody put something here that I think is really useful. Yeah. Let's look at it again. Does this seem magical to you? I mean, it's not magic. You can see it here's an example. I'm not going to give an example of a desire itself because that's you can't do it that way. You have to discover these things. But here's a radio. Right? Here's a speaker. And a dial. And a volume control. Now, all around us, there are signals continually. We know that. There are microwaves, radio waves, all over the place. They're coming from every direction, and they're carrying all kinds of information. You know, there's news, there's sports, there's what's going on with Barack Obama. You know, wars, all this stuff coming to us. And the radio has a potential of picking up all of them. No, we don't want all of them. If we try to do all of them all at once, we're not doing anything, we're not learning anything, we're not getting any information, we're not progressing. It's a process. And that's why there are 613 and why it evolves for us. But the only way that we can feel them is by tuning them in. If we want to know what's going on in this broadcast, which is coming to us, let's say, at 88.9 kilohertz, then we have to be able to create a similar frequency inside of us. And by the way, a radio has within it a device that can create frequencies. So when we turn this volume on, it will do nothing for us except bring us noise unless we tune to this frequency, 88.9, which tells this device to produce an internal frequency of exactly that measurement. Once that happens, and the same frequency exists inside the radio, then this quality can enter here, and we hear it in the speaker, and then this also, our awareness of what's being projected there, the intention behind this, the ideas and the thoughts, also enter there through this equivalence of form that happens. Let's look at the article, and then some of these questions will make a little more sense to us. What the Kabbalah said, that every person is obligated to comprehend the root of his soul, means that the creature's purpose most desired and full of hope is bonding with the Creator, as the verse, and to bond with Him. And the sages interpret this as bonding with His attributes, just as He is compassionate, so you, and so on. And the matter of His attributes is known to be the Sephirot, that 7 Sephirot, His creation, are acting and directing His world, for He measures out to them by their means His influence and beneficence. He's describing here the lower 7 Sephirot, which is that part that constitutes the human soul. That's the part that interacts with the first 3 Sephirot, which are considered to be outside of the system. They're called Gar. They are really, to us, that's like the Creator. But the management of the system is by the 7 lower Sephirot. But what are Sephirot? Sephirot are actually qualities. These are intentions of the light, of the upper force, how nature manages us. And by the way, these laws that work on us, and that environment that works on us is the Creator. But nature and the Creator is the same thing. The gematria for the word hateva, which means nature in Hebrew, and the word for Elohim, which is the word for God, have exactly the same value, 86. This tells us that everything that happens is part of the larger system, that we shouldn't be separating nature from the Creator. We should see this as an integral system, and that these things, this guidance that we receive is really the place where our qualities of our soul interact with the quality of the Creator. This is nature, and all nature is guided only by these qualities. It doesn't exist apart from it on some other system. It's all determined by the Creator. But those levels below us, they're determined by our relationship to the Creator. So he's saying that through these Sephirot, through these qualities, He measures out His influence and beneficence. So if we want to know something about it, we have to get with the qualities. Now, I know there are many questions. How do you sense the quality? How do you sense the quality? Well, let's look at it first on this level. It's necessary to understand why this is called bonding with the Creator. For it appears that this is simply study of the Sephirot. And I will explain by way of an illustration. We observe that in every deed performed in the world, there adheres and remains in that deed the very mind that performed it. So that in the table, we sense the mindful craft of the carpenter and his command of his craft, whether great or small, for at the time of his work, he evaluated it with his knowledge and intelligence, so that one who examines that deed and thinks about the mind that is concealed therein realizes it is from its inception bound up with the mind that made it. That is, they are in fact unified. He's taking the example of a craftsman, of a carpenter. And he's saying that the table is not an object. The table is the result of a thought. It's the result of the action of a mind that prepared something, that created a gift, which we perceive as an object, if we want only to concern ourselves with the gift, with the direct, we call it the direct light. The receiving, just receiving the object and looking at it by its qualities of, well, you know, its external beauty or its value. I'm thinking about the gift, but I'm not thinking about the giver. Well, everything stops there. The desire to perceive the mind that is embodied in it is the beginning of the search. First of all, one realizes that it is a creation, that we're receiving something here. And then it's possible to engage with that thing in the environment, with the table itself, and to get the sense of the quality of forethought, of subtlety, of care, of mastery, of love, and even of that original impulse that the craftsman took in making the table. By desiring the giver, we can begin to sense those things. What was he doing when he made this? Do I see the craftsman standing before me? No, I see the table before me. But if I engage with the gift for the right reason, then he says that the table, from its inception, is bound up with the mind that made it. The object and the mind are unified. So there's an opening here for us. There is a way to penetrate through this opaque reality that we feel from our egoism. He goes on, for truly there's no distance or division in spiritual entities, even if they appear as distinct bodies. Yet the intelligences within them cannot be divided into parts, for with what knife will you divide the spiritual that it will remain divided? One of the definitions of spirituality is that which has no end. It's a complete wholeness. Rather, the main thing which divides spiritualities one from another is differences in attributes, by which is meant praiseworthy attributes or discreditable attributes, also in compounds of spiritualities. For an intelligence that contemplates astrology will not compound with one that contemplates natural science. And even in the same field of wisdom, there are found many compounds of wisdom, for one supersedes his fellow by having acquired one wisdom more. And only by these differences in attributes are the spiritualities divisible between men. However, when two men of wisdom think in one field of wisdom, in which both are equal with respect to that wisdom, then they are in fact unified, for what is there to differentiate them? In other words, there are compounds of qualities, and we experience that even with friends. I like to use this, maybe you want to go to a film with a friend. You know that you like a particular actor. You like this actor too? Oh, good. So you want to see him in this film? Yeah, you do? Okay, good. It's great. You know this other film that he did? You like that film too? Oh, great. Yeah, I always go to his movies. But I like him in comedies. You like him in comedies? You like him in comedies too. And then you're sitting there in the darkened theater and you're both laughing at the same lines. The quality that you have in these compounds of things various choices that you have in relation to your qualities, if you share them with your friend, on that level you're completely bonded with the inner quality of your friend. And, we say that we're close to somebody not because we're sitting in a room with them. You can have somebody that you're very close to who is on the other side of the world, and you don't feel divided from them. You know that they are longing towards you the same way that you're longing towards them. And in that particular feeling, you're actually unified. But you need to get what unified means. It doesn't mean similar. It means the same thing. He continues, and therefore, when someone thinks about his friend's performance and comprehends the intelligence that he exercised in that performance, then both are equally involved with one power and intelligence. They are in fact unified, like a man who chances upon his beloved friend in the market and embraces and kisses him, and to draw them apart is impossible on account of the great bond between them. And therefore, generally speaking, the aspect of intelligence of which we speak is the power and the intelligence which is found between the Creator and His creatures. It is the intermediary between the Creator and the creature. That is, He emanated one spark of intelligence by which all returns to Him. And recall the verse, all of them you made with wisdom. That is, He created the whole universe with His wisdom, and therefore, He who merits to comprehend the ways in which He created the universe and its order surely bonds with the intelligence of Him who caused them, and thus he bonds with the blessed Creator. And this is the secret of the Torah. It is, this should be creations of the Creator that appertain to, can be comprehended by the creatures. And then the creature comprehends by their means the intelligence which formed all. He's saying this is the secret of the Torah. So let's read this again. I know it's a very awkward construction, but let's try it. This is the secret of the Torah. It is that all the creations, I'm sorry that is a typo, of the Creator that appertain to the creatures, and then the creatures comprehends by their means the intelligence which formed all. He's saying that everything that exists is made only for communication with the creature. The worlds were created for man, for the human, the speaking level. There isn't anything that exists in the entire system that isn't an intermediary between that quality within the Creator and the creature, and that does not function as a beckoning, a call, a communication, like a love note. However we may understand it, at this point, it is intended for complete revelation within us. There isn't anything that is meant to be hidden from us at all. Everything in existence is meant to appertain to the creatures. It's not for something else. There isn't anything in existence that isn't aimed at bringing us to the purpose of creation. And then the creature comprehends by their means how it is that we feel according to how we change our quality. That is, something happens to us. There is an event that happens. We have to understand and primarily connect it to the Creator. But we can't understand it at first because our nature is completely different than this. So we have to try to sense not the object, not the event, not the thing that is occurring in our life now that we feel as a pressure from inside and outside that is sensed by us as opposite. This is one of the 613 pressures which we have to turn into mitzvot. These are lights that come towards us. A mitzvah, what you call a commandment or a good act, is the transformation the coming into balance between the two. But we have to understand the thought of the craftsman behind the giving of this event to us in our life. In other words, we should not be looking at the table. We should not be looking only at the thing and the situation that we struggle with in our lives. We should primarily first connect it to the Creator and then see, what does it take to be able to sense not what I feel, but the opposite of what this might be? What is the quality that is being sent to me through this pressure? I'm not going to be able to do it by my logic. I'm not going to be able to do it by my strength. By what will I be able to do it? By what? By what? But this desire to make that, to be able to see the love, the quality of the craftsman, of the artist in this act towards us, this starts a process in us that will open up for us the meaning of the text that we're studying. It will allow us to hear what's being said and to see the process and to find ourselves in that process. It will help us identify the goal. We're starting with very little, but it doesn't matter because the entire system is only built to bring us into that balance. The only reason you're here is you already feel both the outer and the inner pressure. And we must remember that we can't do this alone. We're not doing it for ourselves. We have to do it in connection to the environment. And we need to be in an environment that continually reminds us that it is not the animate, vegetative, and inanimate levels that we're dealing with. Those are all things in terms of humans that we feel is pure egoistic desire. We have to find and place ourselves into an environment that reminds us that our actual environment is the Creator, the field of the Creator. And this is what we have to begin to equalize with. He continues, the Creator looked into the Torah at the time at which He created the world. It is known then that the light, the neshama, that comprehends the ways of creation bonds with that intelligence always, and thus bonds with the Creator. The amount of effort that we put in this direction with that desire will constantly put us into a relationship with the Creator that will evolve into a revelation instead of a concealment, based on the desire to change what is in me, to be like what I can perceive according what I receive through the desire that's created in me to feel the giver and not the gift, what is behind it. And thus we understand why the Creator showed us the tool of His craft. Are we in need to create worlds? Why does the Creator do this? Are we going to, like He says, is this like an experiment where we're going to go someplace else in a physical universe and create creatures? We don't need to recreate what's there. We need to step into it. We need to, instead of being a dead substance, an inanimate substance spiritually, we must become a speaking level, that is the soul level in spirituality. And not that He will show us through all of this how everything is created and really allow us to play with all these things. But the point for us is not to create worlds. It's so that, He says, rather, from what we said above, it is clear that the Creator showed us His orders so that we would know how to bond with Him, which is the fulfillment of to bond with His attributes. These are, they're all notes, they're all calls, they're all beckonings to us. And just like an artist wants to share their inspiration, you may look at the painting and you can say, wow, what technique? But that wasn't why the artist did it. We have to learn not only, oh yeah, these are good things, how do you make them? We want to know the why of the Creator. The how and the why of the Creator is the same thing. The artist shows us his art in order to share his heart, in order that we can partake of a union with Him. And in love we feel this too. We reveal everything that we have within us to the one that we want to bond with. We show the other where to connect with us. And if they feel or even take delight in what we feel, if they don't feel it themselves, if they delight in it, we bond there. And that unity is built within us. There's nothing else going on but that. Questions? Kara from California, does this mean that we're supposed to try and understand things that seem evil to us? Yes. The whole process is to see the why, to be able to feel within me that I would do to me what the Creator has just done for my own benefit, to reach the place where I see He wasn't slapping me, He was pushing me out of the way of something that I needed to avoid. In other words, enabling me to move closer and closer to free will and freedom, to being able to actually guide my destiny. But no, I wanted to hold on to this painful little place. You know, we only see this after the fact. So yes, we're trying to go beyond what we feel as evil and what we sense as evil, because there isn't any. There is only the thought of creation, which is to create a creature and do good to the creature. But not on a petty level, on the highest possible level. Because in order to fulfill the creature must be fulfilled with something that actually exists, and the only thing that does, and the only thing that we can define as fulfillment is the Creator Himself. Ashley from, is that Albuquerque? From, I don't know what that short form is. Thus, by learning the map, the creature can resonate with the frequency of the Creator. By learning how to relate the map to our own inner states. That's actually learning the map. That causes the resonance. Hannah from San Ledro Bay area. Is this the explanation of the left corrects and the right adducts in one's experience? Yes, that's a good insight. This is actually how that functions naturally as part of the system. Before, it seemed like when we looked at None Else Beside Him, it probably struck you as something kind of mechanical. The Creator does this, then the Creator decides to do that. But no, the whole system is like that. It's natural. It flows like that. Corey from Chicago is asking, is this yin and yang? No. Parisela? What will I do with my Christian beliefs, like believing in Christ? Throw it out the window? No, because you don't need to believe this. Look, the difference here is between believing that there is some person who gave you something that, brought you proximity to the light. That's a belief. And the other is, there's a toaster, and if I want to make toast, I have to connect it to a power line, put bread in it, press it down, and wait. That's Kabbalah. It doesn't have anything to do with what you believe. Everything is connected to this. And everything that we do is a preparation for us to be able to step fully into what religions tell us the goal is. The problem with religion is they are more or less true. They tell us the same things, they just don't tell us how. They don't tell us where it is. Be honest. Isn't there some kind of supernatural aspect to the way that you feel about your relationship to your religion? There's heaven, and there's earth, and there's all this kind of stuff, and you see it in some kind of miraculous, superstitious way. Well, what it's saying is true, but the way it's being interpreted to us is completely wrong. This is simply the means of enacting what your religion promises you and gives you. It doesn't discount it at all. It just changes the proportion for a person. Perspective. How can we tell, Paloma from Mexico, how can we tell when we are connecting correctly with the Creator? We can tell because we feel very clearly that what we are experiencing is good, that it is the Creator. There's a decision in us that we are connecting with an intention and that we clearly feel it. To start with, we can only work with what we imagine the Creator to be. We have to work with that. That's what we've got. The only imagination we should think of is what's the Creator. But we need to understand that the Creator is not some guy. The Creator is our absolutely best state. It's our next state each level of each correction reveals an aspect of the Creator to us. And the Kabbalists give us a map in the sense that they say, here's your next best state. And this is what we discovered here. But you're not going to discover this now. You're going to discover your next best state. That is the Creator. And at any time, for us, and it exists within us, and we have to aim at that pure quality of unconditional love within us, and we discover it only in our environment, through our connection with people in that environment, because other than that, you can say, I'm good with God. That's easy. Anybody can say that. I imagine, because of how I feel, that I relate to this abstract thing, God, me and him, good, we're buddies. That's complete nonsense. You have to measure it in a place where there is resistance. You have to measure it against your relationship with people and situations, and how a person deals with, whether they're dealing with the outside or the inside. Now, we will deal with the mechanism, the principal tool of attainment. We'll do that next week. We're going to learn about the screen. But you have to know that this equivalence of form is an open door, that the gate is not locked, that the door is open, that sense that you have, that this is achievable, that the desire to sense something beyond this world, to reach actual freedom of choice, that this is not a vain dream. This exists in nature, it's programmed, and it only waits for us to be able to see and appreciate the systems as they are and what they're really doing for us. If we understand that we are assisted from absolutely every direction in order to attain this, and nothing stands in our way, then we will embrace the system that we're going to learn, the method that we're going to learn, with an open heart. And I just want to remind you that there is your lesson with Mike Kellogg, which is the technical lesson. It's going to be spectacular because he's going to deal with a lot of the things in a very pure way that we dealt with tonight. And he does it beautifully. And you'll be able to take some of this and relate to some of the technical things that he's speaking to you. Bring those states there. And it will really inform what you're learning there. And I will see you again next week. And I'm sorry, it's always that there were so many wonderful people studying with us. We have a great power here. It is amazing how many people are connected. This is actually the fulfillment of something that humanity has desired for a very long time. This has not existed before, and I'm honored, and I'm honored to be connected with this and with you on this path. And I'll see you again next week. Good night.